In this video, we're going to look at Meg and Laurie requirement A part 2. We're diving into looking at the use of losses in different ways, and we'll be doing a bit of a recap on each of those areas with some top tips on approach to help you as well.
So A part 2 is an 8-mark requirement. We are being asked to advise Meg and Laurie of alternative ways in which their respective trading losses, as calculated in the first part, could be used depending on whether Laurie is taken on as an employee or as a partner, and we have to state the rate at which income tax would be saved in each case. So looking at that information, pulling out the key words and things that I need to pull out of that to help me with my structure, I'm going to come up with a little mini plan for my answer. So I've taken the keywords out of it by pulling out the command words advise and state. It says that I have to advise Meg and Laurie of the alternative ways in which their respective trading losses, so that word respective is pointing me towards the fact I need to consider them separately. So that drew me to put a heading saying Meg's loss and one saying Laurie's loss. And then because it says if Laurie becomes an employee or alternatively a partner. So that's why I've then said under each of my headings, Meg's loss, Laurie's loss, I've got Laurie as a partner, Laurie as an employee. Because I know that I need to consider each of these possible options from Meg's perspective and Laurie's perspective. And then also need to remember that I should be stating the income tax rate saved in each case. Now, note it says the rate. It's not asking how much income tax will be saved, it's the rate. So we don't need to go as far as working out any income tax computations here. You wouldn't want to waste time going ahead and doing that. And I've put a wee multiply by 4 in brackets here. Why? This is to remind myself because I wasn't really sure the best way to lay it out in my plan. So I thought I want to make sure I remember that I need to come up with an income tax rate saved under each of these 4 options that I've got here. So I've just put times 4 in brackets as a way to remind myself. And 8 marks then, I've got my structure. And okay, we don't know for sure what the marking scheme is going to look like, but you might think, well, I've got 4 possible scenarios here. What we do with Meg's loss when Laurie's a partner versus an employee, and what we do with Laurie's loss, Laurie's partner, Laurie's employee. So we've got 4 kind of scenarios we're working through. 8 marks, 2 marks each. Within that, we're going to get maybe half a mark for stating the income tax rate saved. So can you see how your 8 marks can be broken down, and it becomes a little bit more achievable because really you're thinking, okay, for Meg's loss, I'm trying to come up with 4 things, one of which is going to be stating the income tax rate saved in each case. So that's 1 for Laurie as an employee, 1 for Laurie as a partner. So it starts to, I hope you can see that this approach of really breaking down that requirement can start helping you to pick out bits that are achievable for you. And maybe in the exam there's going to be bits that you think, no, I just can't think of anything to write for that. But see if you've got 4 things you've got to write about and you've written about 3 of them. You can just move on and pick up your marks somewhere else, but feel confident you've probably managed to get more than half of the marks there. Okay, so now we've got our plan, we want to get on with doing our answer. Okay, and I'm going to use these headings. I'm just going to copy them down from my plan, and I'm going to start working my way methodically through each one. It doesn't really matter probably which one you start with here, so just pick whichever person you feel is easier for you perhaps, and work your way through those. Do keep an eye on the time though as well. So I tackled Meg's loss with Laurie as a partner first of all. Now I realised when I was starting to do my answer that I should really just be doing this in the word processing answer space because I'm not really being asked to calculate anything. Yes, there's probably going to be some numbers in my answer, but I don't really need to use the spreadsheet answer space. So I moved across to using the word processing answer space. just to show you that. So what I've said here is with Laurie as a partner, Meg's loss would be 15,000. So I just need to quantify it up front. I'm not going to get any marks for that. All I'm doing is really bringing my answer from A part 1 down into A part 2. So I'm not really going to get any marks for that probably. You never know though. So it's worth mentioning, but it also helps me then focus on what I'm going to do with that loss. So I'm thinking about what can she do as an individual. So she can choose to carry it back. She can use it in the current year. She could use carry back first, then bring it forward to the current year. She could do current year claim first and then carry back. She could just use it against the previous year or the current year of the loss. So as an individual, you have a lot of options available to you. She can set it against her total income of those years. So that's a couple of options. So with losses questions, there's lots of things to think about. Just work your way through each of the losses. Some loss options, some of them might be completely irrelevant. Don't waste time talking about them in any detail. It might be worth just flagging up, okay, this isn't an option because, you know, sometimes in a question the carry forward option isn't available because they've ceased trading. It's definitely worth you mentioning that, I would say. But here, all the options are available. So I've started off thinking about a current year claim and a prior year claim, because both of those are set against total income. And we know from the information in the question, because we're told that she has rental income each year of 8,600, and we're told that there's profits in the previous year of 1,600, and we know it's then loss making after that. So it's not very high amounts of income, is it? So although she could use that loss against her current year total income of 8,600, which is her rental income, she could carry it back, set it off against her total income of 10,200, or some sort of combination of those two. But she's got a personal allowance anyway, doesn't she? And that would be set off against that income, and there would be no tax to pay for her anyway. So it would be a waste using the loss that way. So bearing in mind that I want to talk about the income tax rate being saved, I'm going to say there's no tax saving there. But there is that other option for her. We could carry the loss forward as an option. It actually doesn't matter which order you discuss the loss relief options. So I've went with the current year and prior year first, and then I'm going to talk about carrying forward as an option, but you could have started off with carrying forward as an option. It doesn't really matter here. Now we're told in the question where it talks about the future of the business that it is expected to make a loss and then after that make profits up to 30,000 a year. Why have they told you that 30,000? They're trying to get you to just think of this business and think of Meg as a basic rate taxpayer. So that's giving you a bit of an idea without going into a full income tax computation that the amount of tax, the tax rate she'll be saving is the basic rate of 20%. So she'll be able to carry it forward, set it against first available trading profits in the future, which are expected to be the next year, and that could save tax at 20% for Meg. Okay, so we can move on and have a think about the next thing on our list. So Meg's loss with Laurie as an employee. In this case, Meg's loss would now be 32,000 if you had worked that out to be the allowable trading loss for Meg from A part 1, or whatever figure you'd use. This is an important point to remember in the exam, is if you've made a mistake somewhere, but then you've used those figures correctly to apply to a situation like this or further on in a calculation, the marker will only penalise you once. They are not allowed to keep penalising you for using the wrong figure. So if you had worked out that Meg's allowable trading loss would have been 42,000, and then you had talked, or let's say, you'd even worked out to be a much bigger number or a much smaller number. Whatever you then do with that number in A part 2 here, and whatever conclusions you draw, and whatever tax saving you say, if the logic is correct for the number you've used, then you will get the marks, and you will get the full marks here in A Part 2, even if you've done the wrong calculations in A Part 1. Okay, so it's called the own figure rule, or follow through marks, they call it sometimes. And it's a really, really important part of the marking process. So we're not going to repeat ourselves here. There's no way we're going to get, the marks for saying the exact same things again. So all I've said is the same options would be available as above with the same tax savings outcomes. Okay, because it's still going to be that she could use it in the current year or carry back, but that would be a waste because those years would be covered by the personal allowance anyway. Instead, she could carry forward because we are expected to be making profits in the future. It might take her a couple of years to make use of the full amount of that loss, but we're not being asked to give any particular opinion. We're just being asked to state the rate at which tax would be saved. So I don't go down the line of talking about, well, if you carry forward, it might take a few years before you get the tax relief, whereas if you use your losses now, you get the immediate effect of the tax relief. We're not being asked to give an opinion in any way. We are being told to advise them of the alternatives, but we haven't been asked to give advice on the benefits or drawbacks of the alternatives. We've been asked to state the rate at which income tax could be saved in each case, but we're not being asked to give an opinion on it. So that's why I haven't come to any conclusion. And even as I go through Laurie's loss situation, I'm not going to come to any conclusion about which is the best outcome overall, because we've not been asked to do that. So now I've covered those two bits from my plan. I'm moving on to Laurie. Laurie's loss. Laurie is a partner. Laurie is an employee. And let's see what points we want to make under those. Okay, so I've pulled down my answer from A Part 1, which was that Laurie, if he was a partner, would have a loss in that year of 5,000, because that was his share, remember, of the allocated loss as a partnership. And I'm just going to work through my loss options for Laurie as an individual. You can use his loss in the current year, the prior year, any combination of those in any order. He's only got 5,000 of loss though. He's got 18,000 of income from dividends in each of those years. That we were told that in the question with the little section here about Laurie. He was employed for many years until the 31st of March, and so now he's only got income of £18,000 each year from dividends. So tax rate, what are we saving? Well, there is a dividend allowance, 0% on the first 1,000 of dividend income, but beyond that you'd be saving tax at 8.75% being the dividend rate, basic rate. He would be a basic rate taxpayer because his only source of income is going to be this 18,000 dividends and anything he gets from the partnership. So that's one option, but also he could do the carry forward option as well. So that would be an option available to him too, as would be a special loss relief that would be applicable to Laurie. Did you spot that one? What is the special loss relief that Laurie can get? Because Laurie's only just started up in business. The partnership has been in existence, or the unincorporated business has already been in existence. But Laurie himself, as a sole trader or being treated effectively like a sole trader, has only just started his business. Therefore, there's a special loss relief available that we're going to look at as well. Okay, so I've written out some answers here looking at the current year and prior year, the carry forward option that I was talking about, and then this early years loss relief. That's the one that's quite particular to Laurie's situation, so let's look at that in a bit more detail. Because it's a loss made in the first 4 years of his trading, Laurie could actually carry that loss back further than the normal rules. He could carry it back 3 years, but it would be on a first in, first out basis. So we go the furthest back in time, we go 3 years back from the year of the loss, and you can set that loss off against other income. Now, what other income does Laurie actually have? Well, remember, he was employed before he is potentially joining this partnership, and he had a salary of 60,000. So he is going to be a higher rate taxpayer. He could set off that loss against his employment income. Now, it's only £5,000, but it would save tax at 40%. Now, we're not asked to give an opinion, remember, so I haven't gone any further with that. Always go back and check your requirements. You have to be reading those on a regular basis throughout your answer, because otherwise the temptation would be to go, as soon as you go, this would save tax at 40%, to continue on talking about, therefore, this is the best option for Laurie. We weren't asked to do that, so that's a waste of your time. What you were asked to do was consider the use of losses. Now, Laurie wouldn't actually have a loss if he's an employee. But because of the way that I have planned out my answer and taken very carefully and very much to heart the wording they've used in the requirement, I've got a heading for that. So I'm going to put something down for that as completeness. Now, there may be a mark. I think there's maximum probably half a mark for that statement. But it is following the exact structure of the requirement, and it means that I can go away from that requirement feeling really confident that I have covered off everything there from all angles. And it's hopefully pretty clear for my marker to follow, and I haven't done anything more than I have to. So I haven't given an opinion, I haven't given advice there. Now, what you'll see is when you're talking about loss relief, in loss relief questions as well as methodically working through all the relevant possible options for somebody, you also need to be quantifying, because you could fall into the trap of going, well, an individual can carry forward and set off their loss against the first available future trading profits, or they can set it off against the total income of the current year and or prior year in any order. Well, that's true, but you could pick that answer up and put it in against anybody's answer. We need you to be writing in a way that's very specific to this client and this client's situation. So it's making sure you don't talk about loss reliefs that aren't relevant. So if the trade had ceased, you wouldn't be going on talking about carry forward, although I always think it's worth a quick mention. Carry forward's not an option because the trade is ceased. But in this case, it is an option here in this particular question. And use the numbers. Do you see that although I've done this in the word processing answer space, I have used figures from the question to illustrate my points. I've not just said, oh, he can set it off against other income. Well, what other income is there? 18,000. Where did it come from? Dividends. That helps me figure out the tax rate that I'm saving at is 8.75, dividend rate. We're trying to make this as specific to our client as possible, wherever we can. And that way we're going to give a much better answer. We're picking up more technical marks along the way, and we're more likely to be picking up professional marks as well. And there were some analysis and evaluation professional marks for part A to do with going through the different loss relief options and using the figures that we've been given to illustrate our answer.
I really hope you found the videos useful going through past paper questions. If you've only looked at one requirement so far, please do check out the videos for the other requirements. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions on these areas.